everybody, this is Phil. I'm doing a quick video on without rule of law. It seems to me there's a lot of videos on YouTube nowadays. And one that comes to mind is Nutnfancy. Great channel about products. He uses more of a survivalist slant, tools you can use in everyday life, knives, outdoor gear, and a lot of weapons. And he claims not to be a gun tube. And I can understand that, and that makes sense. He did a couple videos on without rule of law and engagement. And I was thinking to myself, he's pretty much dead on. He talked about the micro community and the regular community and how each individual prepper would work with his family, and then would they decide to become part of the greater micro community, you know, the neighbors next door, perhaps neighbors down the road, perhaps the whole community if they're in like the suburban atmosphere. And he gave a very good lead up to describing basically, if there is no rule of law, how would you react? Would you go lone wolf? Would you be part of a micro community, maybe one or two neighbors? Pull together your resources, set up security, OPSEC, operational security, what have you, or perhaps a larger community, you know? And at a certain level, you're going to have state militias, okay, eventually, the size of state militias that would want to protect that state, especially if it's a smaller state and they can round up the militia, not just the Army National Guard, to protect people's property, to protect people's lives, their families, what have you. He also spoke of the lone wolf, the prepper that fantasizes about going to war and living out in the woods by himself or herself, for that matter, and living off grid and acting like a sojourner of the apocalypse, so to speak. And that is very much fantasy. Psychologically speaking, people tend to put themselves in this kind of hero mentality. Like they're going to be their own boss, they're going to be in charge of everything, they're going to live and be strong, and they don't have to deal with society the rest of their life. Especially for how long the pandemic or the incident lasts, okay? And perhaps even when the incident is over with, they still want to live by themselves and not deal with anybody. That is their right, okay, first of all. So I agree with Nutnfancy. I agree with everything he said in his presentation. And I have different spins on that when I think of the lone wolf, when I think of the micro community, when I think of the macro community, the state, and actually the whole country being under a pandemic, being under a natural catastrophe, perhaps a man-made catastrophe, an EMP, a nuclear war, bioweapon being unleashed like COVID-19 out of Wuhan, China, as one example. But you have examples of floods, hurricanes, snow blizzards, tornadoes tearing apart a community. And you have one person there that is, let's say, by himself, and he has to protect his family that did survive in his homestead. And let's say, hypothetically, the majority of the people that did survive but don't have anything left, they might revolt towards him, so to speak. That one person is no longer a lone wolf. He's protecting his family, first of all. But does he want to help? Does he want the government to come in sooner and actually be pro-people? Not like a Civil War kind of, military action thing. A positive citizen military action to feed the people, what have you. That one family might not want to actually deal with all the people. And he or she has a right to, especially if they're doing it to protect their family and protect their own goods so their family can survive until the end of that incident. Regardless of what it is, tornado, hurricane, EMP blast, nuclear holocaust, flooding, a broken dam upriver, you name it, it can occur. And a few of those have occurred just under Trump's reign, his presidency. So how would you react without rule of law? Theoretically, there's always some kind of government that's still residual. My point is that what's remaining of the government might still be there, but it all has to do with time. An incident could occur, a catastrophe could occur, and it waylays the American public and life as we know it for just 2 days. It might last 2 weeks. It might last 2 months. It might last 2 years. It might last 2 decades. We do not know. So, speaking of Nutnfancy, and his descriptions were perfect and wonderful. I loved his vernacular, the way he speaks, the way he brings things up from beginning to end, and where he's thinking of something that you might not even expect yet. And the way he expresses it, covering all the bases up to that one delivery, is just fantastic. What I'm saying is, as a prepper, you have to figure chronologically, what are you going to be? That's my only point. Chronologically, what are you going to be? We have cities imploding right now because the Democrats are in charge and they want the economic engine in their city to be destroyed. Why? Because when those shops are burned down and there's less people employed, they have to vote for that mayor of that government or the city council to give them handouts. Okay? Republicans don't think disgustingly like that. And they want to help people, but they want people to also go up and learn on their own and make their own life for them. Okay? It's not our responsibility as a Republican, as a Christian, as an American, to bail out every Tom, Dick, and Harry just because something bad happened to them or their business. I feel sorry for a lot of people that had, no fault of their own, their businesses destroyed. I really do. However, if you know that you're in a downtown area and there's Democrats that run your city and your taxes are always going up astronomically every year, then you should know something's wrong. You should try to gain equity in your property there and move out. Okay, or change the type of business where you can do it elsewhere, like the suburbs. Okay, that's just my feeling. But my heart goes out to those people that, no fault of their own, have their businesses. Some of those people had their homes above their businesses and they were burned out. And those Democrats, they expect that. They expect, and they want to allow all the criminals to kill, hurt, maim, destroy all the other people that are otherwise Republicans, otherwise good people, capitalists, so to speak. And you have this implosion in these cities. So there is, and there has occurred, not all the cities, some of the cities are cleaning up now. But you had without rule of law, okay? In that area where the Democrats don't want you to own a gun either to protect yourself, they want their criminal elements to basically destroy you in capitalism. You have to think to yourself, too, I am going to protect my house inside that city. I am going to protect myself with weapons and my God-given right. And then when you protect your property and your family from those marauding hordes, then you're going to go to jail also for protecting your family. It's already happening, case in point, St. Louis. Okay, if you haven't seen the news over the last 2 weeks, or last week or so, since last weekend, you have a man and his wife protecting their property when a whole crowd of people busted in the gate and were going through this, let's say, causeway on their property. And so the husband and wife came out with guns. We all know that. And they were not being violent, and they were telling the people, hey, get off our property. Get off our property. They had a right to, because one Molotov cocktail being thrown from that same crowd could have torched the whole house down. And I don't know about other people, but I don't want to be burned alive in my own house. So I will be outside of my house protecting it, heavily armed. Anyways, they were in the right, and now this mentally ill DA says she's going to try to bring charges up against them. For what? They were in a legal position. They own legal guns, and they handled their guns legally from their own property. Okay? It has nothing to do with stand your ground. It has to do with location. Those people also coming onto their property and breaking down the gate, okay, that showed an overt act of violence which threatens them and their household. The lady and the man, that is. So why would a crazy, mentally ill, seriously deranged female district attorney say she's going to bring charges against them? Okay? There was theoretically already the breaking and entering when they broke down the gate. That showed ill intent right there. That showed violent intent. Period. And use of force, all that, yada, yada, yada. I can go over and over and over again. Pointing a gun literally at someone in the real world, public property, is an assault. But not from your property. Not from your own private property. D.C., Washington, D.C., where I was trained as a highly educated vice detective for 7 of my 9 years on MPDC, they are the only city in the United States that have a building line code that I am aware of, where if you own a house, you only own the building line. Even if you had a back deck going out the back of your house, you do not own that. That is open to the public for seizure because you own the building line. You don't own the yard. You don't own the fence you put up in your yard. You don't own anything in your... You own what's in your yard, don't get me wrong, but if it's stolen, oh well. If some damage is done to your front yard because of something, you can't sue the mayor. You can't sue the government because it is not your yard. It is actual city property. Look it up. Okay? Other than that, if you have a right and you have standing, like they say, stand your ground. You have a right to stand there, and that is your property. You have the legal, let's say, obligation to stand there. Then there is nothing anybody can do until you discharge that weapon. Even then, it is not technically an assault. Okay? It is an assault when that bullet actually touches the person. That person across the yard, that person in the yard, that person breaking in. And even then, it's not an assault if you're doing it out of fear of life and limb and you're protecting your house, especially yourself and your house. What's going to happen when someone throws a Molotov cocktail, hits your house? Okay? You have to go in there and retrieve your family, your dog. Okay? You could be outside, yeah. But the law is going to say, oh, no, you didn't have to go into your house to save your children or save your family. It's such a terroristic act. It's disgusting what the district attorney is doing. Okay, so that's inside the city. We're thinking about the suburbs. Basically, the same laws apply, but you have to look at your local jurisdiction to what you own. What is a property line? And what expectation of privacy and rights do you have that no one can violate? And I argue with some people. Constitutional lawyers will tell you this too. As an individual citizen, you can be sued. You can be arrested for violating someone else's rights, someone else's civil rights. But a lot of criminal court cases talk about the government not necessarily violating your rights, your individual freedoms, your individual rights. And they have all kinds of case law to prove that about the tyrannical government if they violate your rights. But you can sue also the regular citizen that deprives you of life, limb, and property. Okay? Especially a loved one when you're married, you have lots of recourse. and the criminal law that's going to enforce that, hopefully. But again, we're talking about Democrats ruling things in the big cities, in a lot of suburbs of Northern Virginia. It goes on and on and on. They want paupers. They want people destitute, because then they have to keep on voting for Democrats to get a handout over and over and over again. It's sickening. It's pure evil. So think about, without rule of law, how are you going to react? If you're in good standing, your heart is in the right place, you are defending yourself. The rules of engagement are very clear no matter what time it is. It could be the apocalypse. It could be Armageddon. It could be zombies around everywhere. It does not matter, especially if you're defending yourself. Okay? So think of that. Do I want to be a lone wolf? No, but I am a prepper all unto myself, and I protect my family when they are with me. I also send my children's mothers a lot of ammunition and a lot of presents that the kids can go take to the range one day and go shooting with. I want them never to be afraid of a handgun. Sorry about the excess noise. Someone's doing yard work behind us. But when you think of without rule of law, if there is no law, all you have to do is defend yourself. The question is, chronologically, how far out are you from that original emergency, that original incident? Okay, regardless of what it is. An EMP, a nuclear bomb going off, a bioweapon going off, a hurricane, tornado, tsunami. Who knows? Who cares? Chronologically, you have to think that the further you get away with that, and you do not have rule of law, you do not have a standing government that will enforce your own safety also and allow you to defend yourself, legally speaking, where you don't have recourse anymore in a court of law, because they're also saying with COVID-19, you can't go to court. You can't litigate something. All these judges are like, oh, we're taking a sabbatical because we don't want to get COVID-19. It kind of defeats the purpose of law to begin with, doesn't it? And why is it that the Republicans are the ones without recourse, but Republicans are the only ones getting killed? Us Christians, us law-abiding, God-fearing people. Why is that? And these judges in these liberal cities are saying, no, we are not having court either. Why is that? Because they want to add to the commotion, the chaos, the destitution, the criminal acts of these mass mentally ill people, so on and so forth. So think about it. Chronologically speaking, we're going through this now, COVID-19, and they're trying to make it, so they can keep on attacking the economy. It's worse now than ever when it's not, because a lot less people are passing away now because of COVID-19. Think about it. Right now, without rule of law, we have rule of law a lot of places. A lot of good sheriffs are protecting us Virginians right now. Okay? But it's going on and on and on. So if these Black Lives Matter people in the cities come out to the suburbs after months of terrorizing the cities, and now they want to terrorize white people in the suburbs, if that's the case, chronologically speaking, you are able to defend yourself more because of the evidence that those terroristic criminals presented to the American public. Chronologically speaking, when you're protecting your property and your family, you're more in a position, based on that evidence, reported all over the news, and all those fire bombings, and all those statues coming down, you are backed better, chronologically speaking. Think about it if we have no government. Chronologically speaking, the longer you can survive, the longer you are able to engage, if you have to defend yourself, your family, your community, so on and so forth. So that was my only point. When you think about without rule of law, you have to figure, chronologically speaking, how bad is this going to be for how long? What is going on with these major metropolitan cities? Are they going to affect your suburban life? Are they going to affect you even if you're a lone wolf? Are they going to affect your community? Because how long is this going on now? Was this EMP blast without electricity, without supply lines, without communications, without an actual government there to help you when an emergency does occur to you or your family specifically or your community? They can't help you. How long before you actually take proper action? Rules of engagement, I think Nutnfancy was speaking about. Without rule of law, what are the rules of engagement? You need to factor in time more than anything. But also know the law and that you've got God-given rights to defend you and your property and your family at any time whatsoever. Not just because the DA says so, not just because a mayor in some city says so, or the governor, but because God says so. Your natural God-given right is to defend yourself at all costs whenever you feel the need to. All right, guys, I think I'm going to cut it short now, but it's a beautiful day today, and I just wanted you to think about without rule of law, rules of engagement, okay? Chronologically speaking, is it newer during an incident, an emergency, or is it after a week or so? Is there a lot of poverty and starvation going on? Is there more crime and more hoarding and marauding going on? Okay, you'll find that time is the biggest factor. Thank you, guys, and be safe out there. God bless you. Protect yourself, protect your family, protect your community, protect your state, and protect your God-great United States. Thank you, guys. Take care.